So what was Mark Twain up to when he wrote The Adventures of Huck Finn? Well, I think I know what he had in mind. I don't think he just wrote a story that just flowed along from his experiences when he was a kid. I think he kind of had a point and a purpose. So what do I have in common with Mark Twain? Well, I have a love for kitty cats. Mark Twain, Hemingway, and Shane Zogelman all love kitty cats very much. I've had cats continuously since 1998. I've had as many as 17 at a time, I think, and probably not less than 12 in those years. But anyways, another thing I got in common with Mark Twain is the story goes that he went west to San Francisco and he was writing for a newspaper, and he saw that the cops in the city were, I guess, abusing and harassing and beating the shit out of Chinese people. So he started to write articles about it, and the cops, being the thugs that they were then and the thugs that they still are now, I guess they sent a threat to Mark Twain. I don't know if it was a death threat, but basically they were going to go get him. And I guess he left town. I've heard that happened more than once with him, that he had a newspaper job, wrote about cop corruption, and then they were out to get him. Well, I've had that happen to me where I've talked about, wrote about, and lobbied the government to make laws to protect people from abusive cops, and then I've had the cops come after me with lies and falsified bullshit and harassment and threats. So right here in DuBois County, Indiana. So yeah, I've had that kind of experience, and it ain't over yet. But I'm not an atheist. I think Mark Twain was an atheist. But another thing that I think Mark Twain got wrong is he seemed to think that U.S. Grant, the general of the Civil War and the president later on, that he was some sort of savior of the country or something like that. But, you know, he was probably working on the information he had. And, you know, it's plenty easy to be anti-slavery, so that throws a lot of weight in that direction. But I view Grant as a criminal, sociopath, basically a scumbag. They complain about statues of Stonewall Jackson and things like that. You want to tear those down. I would say tear down the statues of Sherman and Grant, those two criminals that did horrible things to white people and red people. But that's another video for another time. But Mark Twain I think he helped Grant finish his book, so he could have some money for his family before he died of cancer. But I certainly do not view Grant or any of his ilk as heroes. quite the opposite. But anyways, what was Mark Twain up to with Huck Finn? What did he write it for? What was his motivation? What was he doing as he wrote it? I think he was basically holding up a mirror to America, middle America. I think he was exposing middle America for its hypocrisy, its abuses, its craziness, which is kind of what I've done a little bit here and there on a smaller scale. And, you catch a lot of shit for it because people don't want the truth told to their face or written about or talked about or any such thing, or letters to lawmakers to reform things. They don't like that. They're bad people and they want to live in the little world they've carved out for themselves. And when somebody comes along and says, "Hey, that's wrong," then they don't want to deal with that. So Mark Twain, he shows the dysfunctional dad, the dysfunctional grown-ups that treat kids badly, or at the very least just don't know what the hell, don't do the right thing by kids. Along the way of their adventure, Huck and Jim run across all kinds of criminals and con artists and murderers and wackos and wackadoos, and people out to get them and this thing and that thing. Middle America, the heartland. A lot of con artists, bad people, and a lot of them look clean cut and live in clean cut houses and yards and all that. But a lot of them are very much bad people. And Mark Twain, all along the way, it's bad people, bad people, bad people, crazy people, whatever, characters and wackadoos. And when you get to the end of it, there's even an example given of horrible animal abuse. I'm sure Mark Twain witnessed plenty of animal abuse in Middle America the same way I have. I've known people that abused animals like he described in that book toward the end of it. So he's holding up a mirror to Middle America and say, with that book, and he's saying, "Hey, take a look at yourself." I think that's what it is. I think the book Huck Finn is a report on Middle America, written by Mark Twain, based on his experiences and things he saw and heard, living there, growing up there. And I would guess he held back. I would say he sort of rode a fine line between what you could write as sort of a kid's book, teenager book. I think he certainly knew of more horrible things that he could have wrote about, talked about, but at some point, people are greatly offended, and then they start blaming the book. The messenger gets killed, not the fact that this stuff goes on. So very few people really want to take a good look in that mirror of the world that they live in. They'd rather live in the fantasy world. Nobody wants to have the truth told to them about them. And some people get very hostile and violent about it when you give it a try. He wanted that book to be something that would sell for the times, And I think that's so he rode that line between what the public would sort of accept while looking in that mirror. It was wrote sort of as a kid's adventure type of thing, and people pretty much took it that way. I don't know how many people read it and thought, hey, he's talking about us. Well, here, this is a report card on Middle America. And then at the end of the book, Huck meets Tom Sawyer again, and it changes from the mean grown-up world to back to being playful kids. So Mark Twain kind of takes you back to the adventures of Tom Sawyer and leaves us with that. So the examination of Middle America is over, and we're back to being playful kids again. So I guess Mark Twain did not want to leave it on a heavy note. But the real life bad things have still gone on, and it's still going on today. So that the heavy note is still there. The heaviness still exists.